What happens if you compress a file and then compress it again and then compress it again? Does it keep getting smaller forever, or is there a limit? Let me show you something weird. I have a text file here. It's about 4 kilobytes, just a bunch of random text. Now I'm going to compress it with zip. Okay, we went from 4 kilobytes down to about 700 bytes. That's pretty good. We just cut the size by about 80%. But here's the question. What if I compress it again? Take that 710 kilobyte zip file and compress it into another zip file. Interesting. It's now 860 bytes. So what's going on here? Why does compression work perfectly the first time, but then completely fail after that? Well, it comes down to how compression actually works. See, compression algorithms look for patterns in your data, repeating text, common sequences, predictable structures. When they find patterns, they replace them with shorter codes. For example, if your file contains the word compression 100 times, the algorithm might replace every instance with a tiny code like C1. Suddenly, you're storing 2 characters instead of 11, repeated 100 times. That's massive savings. Text files are perfect for this because they're full of patterns. Repeated words, common letters. A compression algorithm can find tons of shortcuts. But here's the thing, when you compress a file, you're essentially removing all those patterns. The compressed file is already optimized. So when you try to compress it again, the algorithm looks for patterns and finds nothing. There's nothing left to compress. In fact, because the compression format has to add its own header and metadata, the file actually gets slightly bigger. It's kind of like trying to summarize a summary. Now you might be wondering, what if we use different compression algorithms? Maybe zip can't compress a zip file, but what about something stronger like 7Z or RAR? Let me try that. I'll take the original compressed file and compress it with 7Z instead. Still bigger, it went from 700 bytes to 800 bytes. The algorithm doesn't matter. Once data is compressed, it's compressed. You can't squeeze more out of it by just running it through another compressor. In fact, there's actually a mathematical concept behind this called Kolmogorov complexity. Basically, every piece of data has a minimum size it can be compressed to. You can't go smaller than that no matter what you do. Once you hit that limit, you're done. Compression works once, maybe really well if your data is repetitive, but after that first pass, you're done. The data is as small as it's going to get. Trying to compress it more just adds unnecessary overhead, unless you get really creative. There are some edge cases where double compression can help, like if you compress different parts of a file with different algorithms optimized for different data types. But for normal use, compressing a compressed file is pointless. So if you've ever wondered whether you could save space by zipping your ZIPPED files, now you know. It doesn't work, and now you also know why.